discussion.
We collect information from people being in the field, and the hardest question is how we can translate it to something that can be transported into something that is useful in designing. Yeah. And maybe you can share some ideas or approaches that you have.
Yeah, actually, I could take that. Like there was one example, like just in our last, I think where we had an in-person meetup, we touched upon the aspect of, say, where we're studying Gala village, and Gala has this spring, which is like this hot spring that is perennial, and it's sort of the main feature, like a touristic attraction for it. And it's also, but when we went to study the place and talk to the people, we realized there's a lot of rituals connected to the spring, which is nothing to do with tourism. It's completely their own, from festivals, they have to go and wash their 5 times prayers. Everybody goes there to wash up, regardless of whether their home is closer to the mosque or not. They go to the spring. When there's a child that's born, the child is washed at the spring water, because the spring water itself has so many minerals that are concentrated in it that it is considered healing. And there's so many narratives and significances to that one environmental feature. And the way that the government had, or even the locals, surprisingly, would suggest, say, tourism development infrastructure, and say, well, we built a coffee shop there, and we built the benches, and we built a nice, kind of like cleaned it up, and it's still just not succeeding. And we felt that this sort of exposing the real value of it, where we have a chance to create different triggers to design. So creating a different problem statement to design development may be a good sort of outcome of what we do. So if we just talk about, okay, look at Gala and look at all the things that happen here, maybe people will be like, that's nice, but that looks like it's a nice place. But then how do we develop from there? What initiatives would suit it? And what better potential does it have than is just seen just from the outside? I feel like that is one of the major outcomes, just, creating the right design brief and triggering the right sort of initiatives or responses is one good outcome. The other is that we're actually creating this database of characteristic of a neighborhood. So if you were to do something that affects this neighborhood, what would be the best approach for you to talk to the people or engage with them based on understanding that this is what they really value, as compared to, say, another neighborhood, which may have, all these same planning characteristics or urban characteristics, but then they value certain other aspects more or less, and how they're connected, how those values are connected or affected. So I feel like all this is sort of the translations of what we are thinking. We're still kind of experimenting and finding out.
Yeah, one of the beauty in gathering and analyzing ethnographic data is that it could in fact shoot off into a different conclusions, or let's say different results, and you can direct them to these a different a direction depending on the need, or let's say that depending also on the client's, a requested a service. So you would design that and kind of work with it to make it suit the end outcome. So for example, the data that we've been analyzing right now at its final stage for Ghala village, that neighborhood in Muscat, it could be in fact turned into a community development guideline easily. It could be in fact turned into urban intervention projects because, you know, we know exactly the strength of this community. It could be also, you know, turned into a development guideline for the decision makers in the government to take the right decision in terms of, you know, providing public services, in terms of, you know, bringing development to this neighborhood. It could be even, you know, turned into a detailed design for a potential investor or a development that could possibly happen in this neighborhood. So we could be more of let's say, an advisors on you know, how to deal with this development to be more effective and obviously more beneficial with minimum damage to that community. If that answers your questions.
Yes, definitely. And I want to add, this sounds so super interesting and so cool. I'm really keen to look further into going on.
You are welcome to Oman Think Urban anytime. You know, and then we would welcome you with you know, open, warm hands to join us.
Maybe just to add, Johanna is actually starting and working on her PhD dissertation. So she's really interested in methodology and approaches and stuff like that. So I think that could be a nice match, actually.
That will be a really fun cooperation. Who knows?
Yeah. Does anybody else have a question?
I would like to. First, I just once again thank you very much for dedicating your time, Shella and Mahmoud. This is really cool that we can have you here, also with apologies that I'm going to have to go because I'm also scheduled to join another meeting, but I will be a little late. I want to ask a question that is mixed with a statement. On the one that is displayed on the left, so basically connecting internationally for you, namely because this is interesting from my let's say more individual work task perspective. I am now more or less experienced in how projects are made in Europe. I mean, international projects between, you know, research organizations and other types. Not from personal experience, but from colleagues, I know how it's done between Europe and the US. Even with India and China, I know, and Japan, I know a little, but I don't have an idea how I could start a project with Oman. I'm talking about in formal situation, in a formal way. And I would be very interested in getting to know how to. And so my question is, if you sort of turning the question around to you, have you had already, apart from the UN Habitat application, have you had already any thoughts or research on what mechanisms you could use to establish international collaborations?
Well, in fact, this is why we have posed this question in here. You know, we have been looking around for those other NGOs with let's say similar values to ours. So that's how woven design in India came into, you know, being and collaboration. And then, you know, after and then we were in fact, you know, checking for those different opportunities around to apply for funding and apply for applications in that. And then after the UN Habitat, you know, heartbreaking rejection, you know, for not having enough women, although that it's like 95% women, you know, organization. We are honestly like putting this question in here to also consult with you guys, and then, you know, trying to get your input on you know, are there some venues, you know, for us, you know, to look for those, you know, are there ways for us to improve our way of how to apply, so we would increase our success rate. So
also there,
on these lines, yeah. Go ahead, Sheila.
Right. When we've been also seeing that there's all these depending on what you want to do. So there are these, say, urban master plan development projects. So for that, the government is opening up to public-private partnerships. So that is like, say, its own set of processes, and we already are going into those circles, you know, who are interested as investors, etc. But in terms of, say, if you want to do something, so it depends on what you want to do. You could do it through an institution in Oman as well. Like Oman has the German University of Technology, which I think has a presence in Germany as well as in Oman. So a lot of the students who work there also, who study there, have, like, also do their master's, PhDs in Germany. And GUTech also sort of has its own initiatives that it's been doing, you know. So I feel like if you can think of what you want to do, there are different venues that we can find out about, and that we are actually, because of the position we are in right now, and we're trying to, you know, connect so much, we have been able to find what we need when we come across such a situation. So if there is something you can think about, what scope of, you know, work you want to do, or what kind of, like, the nature of work you want to do, we can figure out some channels for that. We are in fact pretty open for those potential partnerships.
Thank you once more very much for talking to us.